This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
Okay, I'm calling to order the meeting of the Ad Hoc Grant Search Committee for May 8th at 1:05 p.m. And we have Kate Rooks, Scott Zibek, and myself from the committee. We have Stephen Johnson representing Select Board joining in, and we have two folks from Ty and Bond, Alice Fagnand and Joe Poplarzik, and then Brett Simmons, who's our water superintendent. So thanks everybody for coming in here and joining in on this discussion. I've sent around some documents and I'll just share my screen, I think, a little bit here if I can find them. That's a good question. So we had gotten a little bit of feedback. Of course, can I find the right one? Hold on a minute. Never likes me when I want to do this. We had gotten some feedback from the One Stop program, which really wasn't a heck of a lot, quite honestly. It was pretty vanilla, in my opinion. And again, the application this time for the One Stop program was very, very limited. So before we do that, I should say I don't see anybody here for open time for the public. And in the interest of everybody being here, let's just jump right into this, and Kate and I will catch up on meeting minutes. We've got a little catch up to do on those anyway. So let us just talk about this. So we did put in the expression of interest on the potential trunk sewer study that Ty and Bond had proposed to us, and the feedback itself was pretty not specific-ish, really, except they told us a few things of what we should apply for if we wanted to do the full application. And these are the things that we had put in there anyway, I believe. This sort of weird planning process. It's not construction. It's none of that yet at all. The thing that's a little bit worrisome in a way here is for what we want to do, and I think the proposal from Ty and Bond is about close to 30,000, 29.6 right now. So if we look at how to be competitive here, so the project should showcase a robust community engagement plan. It's like Kate and I were talking a little bit, is like, getting people involved and being excited about having a public sewer. Sometimes you do that via a survey or something like that. I don't know how much effort to put into this kind of thing. And with the time frame, I believe this is due June 5th. So we've got about a little bit less than a month, almost a month to do this, to put in the full application. So this was all that was kind of, really guidelines, I guess I would say. And yes, if there was a match, a 10% match will get us a few extra points, but and it would be 18 months, which is actually longer than I thought it might be. Many of these are not that long. So that's pretty much the feedback that we got. And they told us we could put in for the Rural Development Fund, which we would do anyway because we qualify as a small town under 7,000 population. But again, it's the level of community support and public engagement that we've already done to make this a rah-rah project that everybody's behind. And that's where I personally fell a little bit short in terms of my thinking. And then I'll just share, and we can talk about it in a second. I'll just share this other one if I can find it. I pulled up what I believe is the right application form. Just a second here for this. Let's see where we are. Hang on a minute. So we can see what the actual full application looks like. And that's what I try to do, is get in on Word and just sort of pull them out and say, okay, what do we have to look at for questions? And, is this really something that we're going to manage to really answer here? So the beginning as usual. Where's my scroll thing here? Come on. It's just the usual stuff about who we are. So do we have any community? This is first real question. So organization description, sorry. So that would be very similar to what we put in the EOI. This one's a little bit larger, where we have 1,000 characters, not words. So this would be, but this is the organization structure. So again, this would be talking about who would be the entity implementing this, not the project itself. And this would normally be, I don't know whether, I don't know, Brett, if this would be the water department, if it would be, Scott from town hall perspective, how this would work in terms of who would be the organization per se. We usually put this in as town of Southampton, and then Scott ends up being the lead, or Scott or I end up being the lead contact people. So anyway, that's just a first question. These other couple things on community housing does not apply, I don't think. But I see Stephen's hand. Go ahead, Stephen.
Your prior comments make a whole lot of sense in terms of who the project contact would be. 1.7, the organization description indeed starts with describing the structure. We're a municipality with blah. But right. Housing, economic, and community development goals is where I'd emphasize. And we have a master plan, we have a housing development plan. And last night, by an overwhelming majority, we voted to buy a property in an area that makes sense in a revitalization of a 40R application. So community-wide, really great start. Zoom in what is motivating this. We've tried a 40R district before. We specifically didn't have sewer to support it. Now we've got a piece of land, and again, our would benefit greatly from having sewer for that. And there's been a public commitment to this kind of housing opportunity in town. I wouldn't sell that short.
Okay. No, good point, because we can rely, the housing production plan was just done within the last couple of years, and the master plan certainly mentions affordable housing, et cetera. So, and other economic goals. So, yeah, I mean, we can probably work through that. Very good points.
Its own community input.
Yeah. So I think that's, it just wouldn't be very recent community input, I guess. I mean, I think like when we've done stuff, we've hurried up and done a survey or something, and then that, it's kind of, I don't know if that's what they're looking for. I guess that's the question. But let me just scroll down here. So the next one probably that applies, the community housing restrictions. I don't believe we have any active housing restrictions that I'm aware of. And then a lot of this stuff, community development tools. And this is, I just don't quite know what they're wanting to know. This is just pursuing any other tools, which it's a yes or no. And I don't know how it necessarily relates. This is just kind of an add-on. I don't think it really relates per se to this application. The municipal digital equity one, maybe. I don't know. I guess we'd have to look at those a little bit more carefully. But anyway, so skipping down, MBTA, none of that applies. And then we finally get down to this one here. So this is kind of where we are. So project name, and then we fill this out. So just even on the 2.2, the rural or small town is what would come up for us. I would hope would be the only one. Nothing else I don't think would not be a housing choice one. So the region, I guess, would probably show up by itself, but we would not show up as a housing choice community. And then we would have to do this abstract, which again could be pretty much the same language we put in the expression of interest. I think that was the 500 character one. And then these were all highlighted by them when it came, no, they did not. No, this is highlighted in general when I went in to pull this out of the online form. So I don't know. I didn't highlight this myself, but anyway, these are what they kind of told us to do. So this planning and zoning, community plan, but I think they said to check other down here. So that might be the one we did end up checking here, because none of these totally fit what we're trying to do right now, just for the study. And again, just trying to think about what the request is. It's for the study. It's not yet for the longer term plan. So that's, sometimes it's very tempting to write more than what's really relevant for the actual application. And I don't know about zoning revision. I don't know. I don't think so. Stephen, on the planning board, this stuff? I mean, maybe, I don't know. I mean, it's already zoned that whole section, well, part of it, it's commercial and RV, but
I do know this stuff, and I don't think it's relevant to the feasibilities.
Yeah. Okay. And then planning for housing, if anything, we could maybe put housing feasibility plan, maybe. That might be a possibility. We are definitely not, I've double checked, we are not a housing choice grant program. We're not a housing choice community. We are not qualified for that yet. So then we finally get down to what this is. So here we are. Explain the project, what would be funded and why it's needed. So those are two main questions that I think we could probably tackle. And then the request, they want to break down the budget. And right now, I can't remember, Alex, if you had broken that budget down a little bit. Does it look like this? I can't recall now. Offhand, I didn't pull it up.
Just in the proposal, you mean?
Yeah.
We didn't. It'd be easy enough. I mean, honestly, we're basically all consultant professional fees at this point.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. So I don't think it probably doesn't have to be refined more. And then you can even attach the proposal as a supplemental attachment. So there's substance to the numbers.
Yeah. Okay. So then, yeah. So line item justifications, et cetera, for the budget. Would we do a match? I mean, honestly, for this amount of money, I don't know whether it's worth doing a match and getting, a 10% match would be about $3,000. I mean, I don't know whether that's something that's worth, putting in there to get extra points on this. We could.
You're effectively buying a vowel. You know what I mean? You're buying some bonus points. So.
I know. That's just it. And source of all matching funds. Okay, blah blah. So there's not a lot here. And then this would be kind of a duplicate again of the proposal from the consultant, which would be you guys. And then it does allow for various attachments. So you couldn't put the attachment of the proposal in there. We'd have to get a map, which I'm sure we've already got. We've got multiple maps.
We have a map, and we might need to put a label on it or something, but it does show where the septic would go, and it kind of illustrates where it would provide septic to. But it might be worth looking at that to see if it's really clear about where, what size area would be served or be able to access sewer based upon the map.
Yeah, I mean, I think we'd have to really just sort of. I think in the proposal, Alex, if I'm not mistaken, you had a map that showed this proposed sewer line. I think that map itself would be good, though.
I think it shows. Are you talking about something else? The rail trail, and then it shows the two areas we had discussed with Stephen about being the targets for the study. So that but it could be, it's the intended service area going into the study, so it could be presented that way.
Yeah.
But we only know what we know right now, right?
The only thing that I left out in our conversation, Alex, and therefore is not reflected in your map, is the prior work on a 40R district in the Big Y Red Rock Plaza area, because I wasn't sure, given the level of development that exists there now, I wasn't sure what the housing planning vision was. That would be a third area that would be served. Some of those businesses are already tied in or plan to tie in.
Yeah.
So many of them. Sorry, Chris.
No, I'm just going to say a lot of the Red Rock Plaza folks, I believe, are already tied into East Hampton.
They are. It's same with across the street. The Big Y, the package store, I think it's CVS, Tractor Supply. They're all tied into the other side of the street in East Hampton system.
I believe the car washes too.
Yep. And Queen Bee and what used to be True Heart.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a couple. Yes. Sorry.
Yeah, and I think it does not include the Pure Food Market, right?
I don't believe so.
I don't think so. I think it stops.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that might be an extension. Now, Stephen, is that going? I know that didn't get through planning board at one point. That whole what was going to be put on the new proposed car wash or whatever up replacing True Hearts. Is that going to be coming back to planning board or?
It came to us as please revise the groundwater protection bylaw.
Okay.
And we didn't feel that it was timely or a good approach to carve out gasoline stations as an exemption or not of concern in our groundwater protection district. As a site plan, that would have been a different conversation. But it needed both, and it came to us really as a request to change our groundwater protection district that we've done in some collaboration with the other sole source communities. Right. So we did not act on that. But one clarifying question back to the Red Rock area. They tie into the main along the rail line, or they have cross-country lines that go to across Coleman Road.
They actually run, and I'm very familiar with this because I just looked at it maybe 6 months ago. They run in the tree belt down College Highway, and then there's a manhole pretty much right in front of Verizon that you'll see. I think it's like 18 2-inch pipes. So there's a slew of properties connecting into them. We believe spares were run at the time they were constructed. So if there ever was an issue with one of the lines, they could just unplug from one and plug into another. But it's our understanding, it's the car wash, Queen Bee, and then forgive me, True Heart, wherever that property is, Harley Davidson, and then the Red Rock shops, including Peanuts. And then across the street, there's a gravity system behind Big Y that ties into a pump station that discharges right past, I think it's Southampton's pump station, again, into an East Hampton manhole just on that side of the road, the church and Tractor Supply side.
That main is in Route 10.
Correct. Yep. Okay. Technically, I think it's off into the shoulder, but yes, it's going down Route 10, into East Hampton.
Okay. East Hampton has relatively recently put sewer line under the railroad line or adjacent to the railroad line coming out to Coleman Road. And I don't know the size of either, but in development conversations with planning staff in East Hampton, they said this size would have to bypass Main Street and go down Wamelco Way to the newer line in Greenbelt or in their rail trail. So one of the things, I know East Hampton is open to this idea, but tangibly, I don't know whether there's a pipe there that's big enough to even start the study.
Joe,
the planning board wanted to start with a written commitment to work with us by city officials. Yes, but some of the scoping conversation really could be had.
Steve, Joe can fill in a couple of quick gaps for you.
I sure can. So there's heading down the rail trail that's constructed in East Hampton towards Coleman Road. Primarily, it's 10-inch PVC pipe, but the couple sections as they get towards Southampton goes down to 8-inch PVC. So there's an 8-inch stub there tentatively for Southampton to tie into. We did some very quick, conservative, theoretical loading calculations this morning to try to give just an off-the-cuff, here's what could fit potentially, not knowing what's already tying in to East Hampton section of the rail trail piping. You would have to do that analysis, and that's included in the feasibility study. But using some conservative parameters, industry accepted parameters, we think there's around 425 homes that could tie in. And we say home, it's a 3-person dwelling, essentially. So
going from where to where?
Tying into what's there in East Hampton.
That's your theoretical capacity.
Correct.
Everything upstream.
Yep. So you guys could provide. We calculated 500,000 gallons a day. Again, that's not knowing what is in East Hampton tying into that same line. So we'd have to deduct that out. That's part of the feasibility study. But to try to make it a more digestible, maybe picturable number, you're looking at 425 homes. With that said, we looked at the areas you guys want to develop. Paisano sticks out. I'm sure they're a higher load contributor than just a standard, 3-person home.
My understanding is
businesses like Cumbies or Town Hall, if that was to be an option, how would that impact?
We talked about Cumbies. I wouldn't be terribly concerned about them because they have the one bathroom. They're not doing Paisanos has people in and out of there all the time.
Yeah.
Their load is. Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, no, I was going to say my understanding is Paisano pumps every day.
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh, you mean they have
like a tight tank or something?
Truck.
I think so. That somebody told me that. I don't know if that's true, but that's something that's,
that's costly. Yeah.
It's huge if it is true.
Yeah.
Wow.
So our plan would be to gather, and we include this in the proposal, water data, water use data. And that'll be how we would get an understanding of what properties are using to see how far you can extend this and who you can tie in. But 500,000 gallons a day is.
And picking up on something Caitlin just said too, we did the study map shows kind of the municipal complex area and then also the Paisanos Village area. And one of the things Joe and I talked about earlier was, think about that 425 house number, think about the piece of land the town just voted last night to potentially acquire and the development potential there. So, and then think about the additional cost to extend that sewer line over to the municipal area above and beyond just getting it to the village. So, we're scoped to look at them both, but it might come to a point where your cost benefit ends at the village area and not bringing that pipe all the way down to the municipal complex. And I think one of the attractive parts of that area was there's maybe some larger lots for commercial industrial development, but again, those users are going to take a big, chunk of that capacity off that line. So, it becomes a matter of town priorities of, cost benefit on things, but just some working thoughts to keep in mind. Things we don't have answers to until, a study's done, but that's where this would go.
Yeah. And it's certainly a tremendous, it's a much, you got to go a lot further to get to the municipal campus, right? So there's certainly going to be some significant costs associated with that, regardless of how deep you are. It's going to be expensive. Like Alex said, that will be covered. And, Alex and I had looked at the map and, we had come up with these boundaries from a previous conversation. There's certainly other areas there. It's relatively dense that if you wanted to just get the most bang for your buck locally in, what's called the village area, there might be a means of just tying in more people there. And we don't know what the septic systems are like in that area, but there is opportunity there.
Yeah.
In addition to that parcel that the town is looking to.
Board of Health has concerns. There's been a lot of retrofit of the multifamily housing systems, septic systems, and they've probably exhausted their ability to do that and would be better to connect to sewer. So it would be great to touch base with the health department for their comments and additions, because this was very much encouraged by the Board of Health.
Mm-hmm. That was mostly related to nitrogen soil loading in the more like the side streets, the community areas. But I can get some, I think I pulled some of the notes into our pile of stuff for this grant application too.
How about Brett? Anything you can say from the water point of view here, water department point of view?
No, you just sent me this information. This was on the news to me as of Monday, so I didn't really get too much time to digest a lot of it. Staring at your maps and looking at some of the general areas and anything that I know about towns. Anything in that downtown village area, I can get. One of the Greenbriers right now at the corner of Gun Road Extension, they're in the middle of putting in a massive sewer or septic. You got a lot of, I'm trying to recall the other complexes behind here, the municipal complex, the condo complexes behind Cumberland Farms. You got quite a lot of, cluster of condominium complexes back there. And
right, that's
like they're covering some, but not all of them, right? And then the one that, and I don't remember what name it is, they operate their own treatment facility. And I'm trying to look, I have to look up on my map, but they run their own wastewater treatment plant. They got Jim Gracia, civil engineer, that operates and pumps out of there. I'm wondering if theirs is failing, get some type of commitment from some of these people to these condo complexes to sign on to this. That's going to be a large chunk of your 400 homes. If you're looking at, I'm guessing there's got to be 500 apartments in there, 400 apartments. There's your 500 homes. So you'd have to kind of almost.
Yeah, that must be that between Park Place and the Long Hill Gardens, right behind the bank area. Yeah,
Long Hill is the one that actually They operate their own sewer treatment plant there.
Maybe that's where Paisanos ties in. I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. And across the street, there is what's known as Strawberry Manor. That's that small, right across from Cumbies. It's a two-story, I think. I don't know how many apartments are in there, but it's right before Lynn Drive, I believe. There's just a small area there. And then just down a little bit past Dunkin' Donuts on the right, there's another set of condos in there. So all right in that area. I mean, if there's a way to get as far as that would be a huge accomplishment to be able to tie, more of those in. And a lot of that is the old neighborhood. So right near there is the Mountain View Circle. Right. A lot of tiny family homes. I guess they're all on septic that have been there for eons, and let alone across the street with, Lynn Drive, Helen Drive, et cetera, right before the gas station, right before Midtown Motors there. So that whole area, if that were at all, even if that was as far as this could possibly go, and try to work at, combining forces with all those that are around doing whatever their own ad hoc system is, to bring them into the fold, that might be a very interesting project.
I think of the bowling alley as well. I know that they've had some issues with their current system, and I think to replace the system for that building would be quite expensive. And
I think they're doing it now, though.
Someone wanting to purchase that property.
Yeah. They're actually replacing part of that now, Kate, because we gave them some ARPA money to do some of the initial engineering, but they're having to fork out the money to put in a new septic.
Yeah, it's crazy. I just feel, I feel bad for the businesses that have to incur those costs.
No, it's true. I mean, everybody's doing their own thing, and that's been the way it is. Now, I think there's something, we came across a report recently on, I think it was called Sea Consultants, SEA. They were folks that had done tons and tons of sewer studies in town, and we've got some of the old sewer studies that were done. If they can be of use to anybody. I know we've got hard copies of them.
We've seen one from the Hampton Ponds area, I believe.
Yeah, but they're correct. But I think there are others along Route 10 perhaps too. So when I go down to town hall, I'll see if I can dig. They were in a box the last time I saw them. I will see if I can find anything that might look halfway relevant.
I want to jump in on that specifically because this question came up at the planning board. And the question was, haven't we studied sewer in the past? These contractors mentioned specifically. And when I went back and looked, there were at least 2 iterations of planning, and it didn't interact with the geography we're looking at all. It was all headed towards Westfield, and it was all the small lots around the ponds.
Okay. Reaching
back to the service area in the village and the small lot development that's been there for 70 years, I would suggest that is another piece of stabilizing housing opportunity in our community. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, they're going to get the Wellesley phenomenon happens sooner or later everywhere. The old one gets torn down, the new one gets built. But we need sewer to accommodate that. Otherwise, you're tearing down 2 to build 1. Mm-hmm. So providing stabilization of the housing stock as well as focusing on this new development. We don't have any idea yet how many bedrooms of housing we would be hoping to contract for. But I think that the planning of the new acquisition, the land planning that we committed to, would be informing this process as well. What is that mix of use that's on the 56 acres?
Yeah.
The Greenway Committee has expressed tacit support for this, but they're concerned that the town might lose its investment if the rail line was reactivated. And that is one of the reasons why they think we need to have a compared to running down Route 10. Seems self-evident to me that going over hill and dale on a longer route down Route 10 is going to be more costly, but I'm not an engineer. I couldn't begin to cost it out. It's a gut reaction. So scoping this thing, pretty sure that the feasibility study is looking critically at what it means to that the rail line remains available to be reactivated at some point in the future. And again, I'm not an engineer, but that suggests to me that the sewer would be offset, not set down in the ballast. The ballast is where the trail would go, and the sewer line would have some sort of an adjacent alignment because we don't want to build a sewer and then lose it when the train comes back. This is what I heard from the Greenway Committee.
Yeah, and the likelihood of the train coming back, who knows? But I know Scott's getting in contact with the railroad just to clarify all that issue around ownership and so forth on that. But does the East Hampton one go?
An attorney who really knows rail banking, the one that advised us previously.
No, Scott's going to have a first chat with the railroad executive, though, just to see where things are from their point of view. That's how he wants to handle it. So we've got some of that lined up, Stephen, but we want to start with a different angle just to introduce him and so forth. The East Hampton one, though, goes parallel to the rail trail or underneath it?
Right underneath.
Yeah, that was my understanding as well. It's just right in it.
Yep.
And that's great from accessibility as well, for future maintenance and needing to clean it and all that. Obviously to replace it, it's, challenging, but sewers last, 10s, 20s, 30s, 50s, 60s years, just last a long time.
Yeah. Okay.
Going back to something Steve was talking about, going down Route 10, it's the most expensive option. I can attest to the projects we got going on. Anytime you dig a hole on Route 10, because it's mass highway, shaft permits, everything, and reconstruction of everything is just ridiculous.
Yeah.
So
restoration is very expensive.
So,
and I can tell you just from driving it, you're going to get into pump stations there. It goes up and down. There's not, without actually looking at it, in tremendous detail, you're not going to be able to construct a gravity system from tip to tail because there's just too many ups and downs.
We just laid 1,700 feet of 12-inch pipe, and I think it came out to $375 a foot for pipe. So it's not cheap jigging in that street.
Right. Yeah.
Chris, can I react to two things quick before I lose them? One is, this is a bit off, but Caitlin did ask me last time we talked if we knew anything else about rail banking agreements and sewer easements. And I did ask around, Caitlin, and I didn't find any direct parallels to the Southampton situation. So I think the path Chris outlined is best right now, just continuing to work with the railroad and through attorneys. The other was, I just want to emphasize too, part of the reason that new parcel that the town is now discussing land planning for, I do think that's the town's hook for rural development fund for future housing works type dollars, right? So that's where I start to even de-emphasize, we still look at it, but de-emphasize the municipal area and say the priority, because of the funding source is really going to be developing that parcel to add housing stock or commercial, inventory to the town. And then I like Stephen's point, I wasn't thinking this, about stabilizing the existing housing inventory by, providing that source. So, I would just try to keep that in focus in the grant application. Like I think one of your big hooks is the opportunity to increase, whether it's commercial or residential, but those inventories that the town has. And that parcel is so easy to visualize as contributing to that end.
Okay.
That's helpful. Thank you so much for looking into that, Alex. And I think those are helpful tips while we write our narrative.
Yeah. So these are the basic questions for the narrative. And a lot of it was, just smaller answers earlier on. Some of it feels a little bit redundant, but so it's this whole community description engagement plan, leadership and ability to execute, progress to date, and timeline. So there's a lot that goes into this, guys. And I guess I'll throw out just a thought. I don't know exactly yet because we've gotten through town meeting and the budget now. So I'm hoping to spend time with the town accountant, but I guess I'm wondering for the 29,000 or whatever that is being put forth for this study, part of me feels like this kind of an application goes to the next level after the study for more implementation of what the study finds. This is the kind of application I would see to be very useful for that. And I'm wondering, and I don't know, Stephen, if we can find some ARPA money still to cover this study and get it done a hell of a lot quicker than waiting for One Stop to review it, let alone all the work that goes into this. So I'd like to I'm going to see if I can narrow down in the next couple of days and see if I can get a good handle on what hasn't been spent with ARPA that might reflow back in. And I know Alex and Joe, part of this is tied into that stormwater grant you're working with Randall, where we had to put up the whole 140,000, and really we don't get that much. I mean, we don't have to put in that much, but we as a municipality had to put out the full cost of that culvert study to get reimbursed 85,000 or something, I'm thinking. It's just a matter of how soon is any of that coming back in the door to us, because that would really help. That could easily, be a one-time thing to fund this study, get the study done, and then start working on this, probably not till next year's cycle, but to actually really build on knowing that these are the kinds of questions that we've got to develop to put in a really strong application for the future. So that's just a thought. I'm not saying no. I'm just saying that this is, we've got a lot of creative writing to do on this one, I think.
Yeah, frankly, Joe and I were also talking this morning about how, the 29,000 that we came to the town with based on the initial discussion was understanding this might be coming out of some kind of local money. And how do we just get you to answer that basic question of like, is this worth going forward with?
Right.
If you're going to put the time and effort into a one-stop application, there's more we could do now and, at a higher grant award number to make the effort you're putting in more worth it for this group and for the town in general. And these would be all things you would potentially need to do in the future, or they would help answer the bigger questions, like actually putting numbers to Route 10, even though that wouldn't be a huge effort. But so I'm not trying to oversell you on boosting our fee, but I am acknowledging, for $30,000, this is a lot of effort to go through this grant application. And if you're going to chase a grant that will allow, I forget what it was, up to 100 or on one and up to 500 on the rural development, like there's more we can do that's beneficial to this process that will take you the same effort in terms of the grant application. So,
and even if the town had a number in mind, we could tailor it to that. One of the tasks, or a couple of the tasks we had discussed, was even, we do the feasibility study as is. Does the town want to get site survey beyond that? So you actually have a detailed, figure topographic map of the area you want a sewer. Do you want to do geotechnical explorations? There's lots to do, and it's whatever the town obviously wants to take on. But like Alex had said, if you're going to go for it, might be worth just going bigger and taking this as far as you possibly can with free dollars.
Mm-hmm.
I would support that, and in particular, I'm sure we're going to go forward with the acquisition of this property, and the connection to a sewer in the rail line would most obviously go through this property if it's serving the village. Maybe down one of the side streets, but you don't actually get to the rail line on the side streets. You'd have to go anyway. So I am very much in favor of taking a harder look at the village. And that would intersect with our active 40R proposal.
Mm-hmm. So, Stephen, we don't have the 40R approved yet, right? Is that correct?
No. It's a planning grant through the RPA, the PVPC, to prepare the application for 40R. But Caitlin's the expert on this, so I should defer to her.
Okay. I know Sierra came at one point from the Housing Authority.
I'm sorry. I confused the two of you endlessly. Sierra.
It's okay. She's Sierra. A good friend of mine.
Yeah, Sierra, I know, was talking about it, trying to reactivate it the last I knew, because it had come up, like you said, 10 years ago, kind of got dropped for whatever reason. And then she was trying to talk, I think, to the planning board, perhaps, she was going to anyway, to see if that could be a reactivation. So from what you're saying, PVPC is going to help to draft a little application for that through their DLTA program.
So with a DLTA grant. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's good too.
Yeah, it's in their work plan.
Yeah. So
I think these intersect in a way that just brings housing to the fore as our evolving iterative commitment and failure to do something supportive for housing.
Yeah.
Fast forward. At that conference, Chris, where we heard Keith Ferry speak, I pulled him aside for a sidebar. He said, well, Wayfinders manages a property right across the street from what you're describing. Of course, we would be interested. And then he went on to do the spiel about how deficient the entire region is in housing, but made a real pitch to work with a nonprofit housing developer early on to scope out what their capacity is intersecting with the town's aspirations. And so that you don't have a widely divergent wish list from what a developer can finance and build. I think that this housing rationale ties and supports the first feasibility study for the sewer and further detailed planning. I think the whole village ought to be mapped out, that potential service area and the connection, so that when we do the site planning for 125 College Highway, we reserve a place for the sewer connection.
Yeah,
so just too. In terms of mapping out, I'm interpreting that as site survey. It certainly does, as you expand and span to get more and more details, it just does get expensive. That's all. So obviously it's something you'd want to do regardless. If you're thinking about sewering these neighborhoods, as that becomes more and more real, it becomes a more and more pertinent task to undertake. But that does start to chew away at dollars, which is not a bad thing, right? It's money that has to get spent anyway, but potentially, again, something that can be included in the application to further the development of the, sewer to the village area.
So would you instrument survey a whole neighborhood, or would you start with LiDAR framework and then just go for the collectors?
Yeah, you can certainly, right? As you progress, you're going to want it to be more and more detailed, especially when it comes to a gravity system like that. If you were laying out a sewer force main or a water main, you could live with a little less precision. But when it comes to tying in properties, so to answer your question, I know it's not a direct answer to your question. To answer your question, in the short term for the feasibility study, we're going to use LiDAR data, just to get a rough understanding of where we think the sewer would lay, depths it will be at, come up with costs, and then, you can kind of take it from there. It's just as you continue to sharpen that pencil, you're going to want those details to become more and more refined.
So it sounds like at the end of the study, we would know one way or another whether it's feasible to do this and how far it would go. And we would have an understanding of what the load capacity is and how much East Hampton would be willing to take on for us. I mean, we don't have, and it might necessitate like an intermunicipal agreement or something with East Hampton, I'm assuming, with their
Certainly.
DPW, Brett, to just join in with them and just, agree to whatever cost sharing. I know you've got an agreement already on sharing the well and all that kind of thing, right? From getting water from East Hampton when we need it. But tying in also on a sewer system possibly would be another kind of intermunicipal agreement. Is that something that you would think of, Brett? Or
well, the agreement we have now is the booster station. So when in periods of high water usage and demand, we can't keep up based on our permit through the DEP. We purchase water from them. As far as any other agreements, I'm not sure of any that are any more other than that.
Yeah. Okay. But I mean, I guess then I would assume that we'd have to have something like that with East Hampton. So would part of this study then to also involve DEP officials from East Hampton and get their input on this? Or is that something that the town needs to do separately? Or how would you guys recommend doing that, Joe or Alex?
That's a good question. The IMA direction is definitely, in my opinion, correct. Southwick, for reference, I live in Westfield, Alex lives in Westfield. I'm aware that Southwick conveys sewage to the Westfield Water Pollution Control Facility. They have an IMA, right? They're getting charged for the number of gallons that they're sending, and there's an agreement between the municipalities. In terms of when that comes into play, to answer your previous question, the goal is to, yes, understand what you can send to East Hampton that East Hampton can comfortably take. There would certainly be a conversation, right? Because we would pull the numbers together, as precisely as we could. And then East Hampton would have to say, yeah, we're comfortable with that, right? And then assuming Southampton's comfortable with that, certainly you could begin the IMA process. Then, yeah, I believe DEP gets involved in those as well. Mm-hmm. So that's not currently in our scope. However, not to say that we couldn't do it. Okay. At this point, we're going to work with East Hampton to get the data required to understand what their pipe can take, and then lay out some, potential sewer paths and provide costs for those, for the town of Southampton.
Okay. And that would at least get us a good understanding at the end of whether this is really feasible or not to be able to take the next steps, right? So,
yep.
Okay. I guess, I don't know, is anybody else thinking about this application? I would like to explore seeing if we can't find a few pennies through the ARPA money or some other piggy bank if we can find one without having to go through this level of effort for this particular, sort of a smaller project, I guess I would say, keeping it at the current scope that Ty and Bond has put forward and trying to get that done and out of the way. And then, really putting our effort in on a bigger program that would ask for more money and be able to be better justified. I don't know. Anybody for or against?
I love
Kate?
Not having to write applications. I think that this is really important. I feel, obviously I'm not deeply, aware of all the money that's available and not available in town. Of course, I think it's if we don't have the funding, then I think we should move forward with the application. But I agree with you that it would be nice to have this feasibility study kind of completed to say, we've done this work. We're, have the time to get the community engagement and then, have a bigger ask that's kind of like worth the work. I think it's worth the work either way, but $30,000, if you think we can swing it through ARPA, that's an appropriate use of ARPA funds.
Yeah, no, I think it definitely is. What do you think, Scott? Think we can put our heads together and see if we can scrub some numbers with Bradley, maybe?
I think we should find it.
I think we should. It just feels like it would be, once we find it, then that would allow you guys to be able to move ahead pretty quickly rather than, going through, a longer process. I don't know. I'm not being lazy here. I'm just trying to be practical.
No, I love it. Is there any possibility that the cost of this would exceed the expected $30,000, like significantly?
If we kept to the same scope, no. The idea would be we do it for that cost and we'd get everything that's explained in that.
I just hear us talking about different roads and different, approaches. Yeah. And that would be my only reservation would be if we anticipate that that there's going to be additional costs beyond the $30,000 that,
we have covered
$30,000, but we might not have 60.
Right.
Oh, certainly. Yeah, no, the idea would be to cover those areas that were identified on the map in the proposal. So the village area, up by Paisanos, it does not include, the bounds are pretty specific. So if the bounds extended, then there would be additional costs associated with that. It would just be data collection, data review, laying out additional sewer. And if you want, for those, I'm not sure if people have it. I can't screen share.
I can let you screen share. Hold on a minute.
And yeah, I happen to have the figure in
Joe,
front of me.
while you pull that up, let me just comment on something else. Talking about, next phase or whatever, that once you have a land plan for that piece of property, assuming it's acquired and you get a plan and there's some housing involved, it's a prime candidate for the new Housing Works program to get the money to actually go build a sewer and potentially even put the water, get a water stub to the property and all those pre-development activities. And I think I've mentioned this before, but MassWorks funding is level for the next 3 to 5 years. All the extra money is going into Housing Works because the governor's priority is to increase the housing inventory in the state. So if you have a housing driven application or at least a housing component in your application and you become eligible for Housing Works, that's where you're going to get $5 million handed to the town of Southampton to go build this sewer or to, whatever other pre-development design activities are needed or, so to the point of building out that application this year, just the natural process the town's already committed to over the next year is going to benefit you in pursuing much bigger dollars for this specific, discussion.
I'm actually looking at that application to see, are there limitations in terms of, population or like town size, because I've noticed that we haven't been eligible for some bigger projects because of our population.
It's a good question.
Well, the Rural Development Fund, we do fit because we're under 7,000. So,
but it's bite size. It's 500K.
Right. Yeah.
I
Eligible
don't.
applicants. I'm looking at it right now.
I don't know if there's a limit on with Housing Works, if there's the reverse. My understanding is no, but there may be specific guidance in there that.
No, it says all Massachusetts municipalities and related municipal entities are eligible for consideration. So that's a great suggestion, Alex.
So what are we looking at, Joe?
This is the map for the proposal. I was going to quickly try to measure this because I don't remember the number off the top of my head. I would say this is going to be easily a multi-million-dollar project in the end to construct the sewer.
Of course.
You have a long way to go. It's just there's a lot here. So my point being, the millions of dollar grant would be certainly beneficial and utilized. This is the figure.
We don't have it.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a great idea. I love it. I love if that's possible for us to just like expedite this so we can start working on the application for, the same amount of work for $5 million versus $30,000. So
Alex, off the top of your head, I'm guessing the grant cycles are the same, right? So that won't be available until next.
It's all one
time frame, but
it's all one stop. So it's this June, beginning of June. It's the next beginning of June.
Just to give some perspective on time frame, right? We will move through this obviously as quick as we can, but that specific grant opportunity won't be available until.
Our study will be done, but then the other land development activities the town's discussing, up to and including potentially a development partner being on board. Whether that's a private developer or whether that's working with someone like West Mass Area Development Corporation that's quasi-public and is simply coming in and helping to anchor your application and give more credibility to the MassWorks folks that there's a real plan here moving forward. Those are all different strategies that can be discussed.
So I'd like to go to Joe's question about potentially modifying the service area. And I think that around the village, we got the most critical stuff, but I would definitely expand it to include all the multifamily, all the condos, and I don't think it would be that much more difficult to serve these downhill side streets, Lynn, Karen, and the other one.
Honestly, that's what stuck out, to me when we started getting into, and again, I really want to emphasize, theoretically 425 homes. It's just an easy way to idealize it. 500,000 gallons per minute is the number, right? So if for whatever reason people have abnormally high sewer use, it would be different, but we don't anticipate that. And what we'll use is we'll census data and water use data to come up with a real number. That
500,000 gallons a minute
per day.
Got it.
Yeah, that would be a lot.
How big's this pipe?
Yeah, exactly. It's a tunnel. It's actually a tunnel. But so go ahead, Chris. Sorry.
If we could, following Stephen's suggestion, if we could move those red lines out a bit to include like the Lynn Drive and Helen Drive and so forth, and I don't know. I think it's right behind Paisanos. That would be the 19149, maybe. That is the that one complex, that Long Hill Gardens. I think maybe there.
That's the one that has they currently have their own wastewater treatment facility.
Oh, that's the one. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
So to give everybody a guess, our average pumping rate in wintertime for a daily rate is only about 265,000 gallons a day. I haven't been here for summer yet, but in the high demands, it's 360 to 400. But a lot of that water, I think, is lawns. So this time of year is a good estimate of it'd be for the whole town, we're 265,000 gallons average ballpark. Okay. So
we will certainly, that's great data. We'll be certainly asking for that to get a better understanding of, what are you guys seeing, right? And accordingly, what will go to the sewer, right? Winter usage is great because, there's typically a correction factor that's provided depending upon the time of year you're getting your data, right? Where there will be a certain portion of that is exterior recreational use or garden use or whatever it might be, right? Agricultural, whatever.
Yep.
So
I also wonder how much of our town is on wells. Whatever that can be part of our data collection because I know some people have wells. I know not everybody has.
I believe a lot of people still do. My annual statistical data, we have about 4,902 people is the best guess based on 2.5 or 3 people per house. But
I don't know how many of those people are along this particular proposed pathway, but.
Yeah. But I think we have some figures for the number of people on town water versus wells.
Yeah.
I think we had that from when we had another public forum way back last year sometime.
Yeah, so just for reference, if we proceed with this, when we put in the data request, it would be specifically, ASR data would be great, but it would be specifically for people in the target area.
Yeah, right.
And then obviously, if that number comes in low and you guys are like, oh, okay, well, we can expand it even further, that would be something that, unless we cover it in this, map revision, that would be out of scope, but you would know at least I can cover everybody here, hypothetically, right? And we could even push it further.
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah. Yeah. And certainly one of your bigger water users, and not necessarily, but water users is right under where that village area label is, which is Fletcher Farm. So in terms of, a huge water user, right there. So yeah.
And they're on town water?
I don't
they might be because they're along College Highway.
They are. They are. There's a little water main that comes down because I live on the other side of the road. So it comes down. I have one that comes to my house from the hydrant, and they have one to their side of the road as well. Yeah, only as far as their dairy barn, though, but not. I don't think it goes farther than the barn. I don't think it goes farther down Gun Road.
Yeah, they'd be the great example of the outlier. Yeah, because all of their water's going right into their crops. Yeah, exactly. Not going to make it to the sewer. But okay. I mean, is this
my understanding that there's interest in revising the study area because the 30,000 number seemed like a big consideration in terms of maybe finding other money. So we can definitely look at the revised study area quickly to get you a data point to decide if that's still what you want to do. And I guess the other follow-on question is I'm just looking at the map, Pomeroy Meadow and Gun Road Extension kind of encase the upper boundary of what you're talking about, maybe excluding the school, but, in or out, whatever. And then Karen Lane and Lynn Drive, do you add those areas and then just delete the municipal complex area to try to keep the number closer to the proposal we've already provided you? I mean, does that make sense to this group?
I think
the municipal complex is what you suggested would help us to have an edge for housing development, correct?
No, I think parcel 19-141 is what would give you an edge.
Oh, sorry. That's what
Yeah, I think too, just, I think it would be good to try to focus a bit more on this area and, take it, it's, if we can get this far, this would be amazing. It's been so long to, the discussion has happened about having sewer in town, and this right along this area that we're about hopefully going to acquire. There's at least 3 parcels right on Route 10 that would be zone commercial. Yep. So that would be, having that would be really helpful to be able to bring in that business. So I would be in favor of sort of stopping right in that general area and, not going all the way downtown at this point in time. Just take it one step at a time, I think, personally.
Yeah, and to be honest, whatever we find in terms of capacity. If you happen to have excess capacity, there's always a means, right? This is the low point, big hill going up to Party Patrol and Opa used to be. There might even be the avenue of just constructing a separate gravity system in this area to a pump station. And then you're sure you got to run that pump station piping likely in Route 10, but there's even a means down the road, right, to sewer this area with a separate system than one.
Right. If you find you have excess capacity from the first phase.
Correct. Right. It would revolve. Yeah, exactly.
Well, and at some point, East Street is going to be dug up because we're going to be doing, a DOT project from College Highway all the way up to Whispering Lane. So quite a ways down East Street is all going to be widened and resurfaced somewhere.
And
it's one of those.
That's principally why I wanted to see about coming the second leg down to East Street. It's not that the municipal buildings drive it, but on that ridge, which East Street sort of sits on, I looked at some houses. I've looked at the sad situation at the library and the site that the seniors wanted for a senior center. It's got absorption problems all through there. and it would benefit from some sort of sewer, but it doesn't have the density or the affordable housing drivers nor an obvious commitment from the town like we demonstrated last night. So there was a reason to include this, and don't focus on the town-owned buildings, but that's for later. I'm sure that between what East Hampton needs to reserve for their big affordable housing project and what we would like to somehow, at least on a planning level, earmark for the development of our property, we'll be talking about capacity limitations pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm. I would think so.
And that was a big point that I mentioned right in the beginning, right? Part of our study will be what's on East Hampton's portion of the line to make sure that, that capacity that we're theorizing for Southampton isn't being used just by their connections in that stretch.
Right.
And so there's crystal ball gazing as well, because right there at 385 Main Street, there's going to be renovation of the existing senior housing of 40 units and then 100 new on that site. And they'll go down Wamelka Way to that same 8-inch main.
So back to the map revisions, is this something the town wants to take a stab at and send back over to us? And then we can look if it's as simple as we're going to swap the municipal campus for that additional area up here. My immediate inkling is that.
Yes.
Okay.
I'd like to see how it coincides or doesn't with our planning grant application. If that has a description of a 40R possibility here, I'd just like to lay the two plans beside each other. But I think what you described, Joe, is really conceptually correct. Gun Road Extension, Pomeroy Meadow Extension, Helen, and then up to
So
to the north
are we going to include
property.
I don't know why I'm blanking on the streets because my friends grew up there. Parsons Street?
Where's Parsons?
Newer, right? No, I think they're okay.
Okay, so is it going to be pretty much like this?
Well, wait a minute. If you got a pipe in the road, you're not going to serve one side of the road and not the other, right?
That's kind of my point.
No.
So I think you would do this and encapsulate all these properties.
Yeah.
I agree. But for whatever reason, those were very new septics and they happen to leach fine, that might be a reason to just let it be. But I mean, so I would almost just say.
Yeah, remember, if you have a good septic, you prefer to keep it because you paid for it and then you don't pay the town to, use it. So
that's my feeling.
If they have issues, then they would want the opportunity to connect to a sewer rather than put in another system that's going to fail.
I will also just say, I mean, I live off of College Highway, and underneath my soil is all granite. I don't even know how people dig. It's just like literally all rock. So I can't imagine that properties around me are that different. So I can imagine that it might be hard for other people, especially if they have longer driveways, to tie into sewer or tie into sewer like affordably, because you'd have to like blast literally. I tried to use a jackhammer in my driveway and it's ridiculous.
In some places.
Yeah, it changes. I got a quick question. Trying to throw a wrench in here. You're talking about municipal properties. How is Norris Elementary served as far as septic, and what's their annual operating cost? If part of this is to be a long-term, aquifer protection, but also saving the town money and school department money, what's the annual operating cost on Norris, and how old is their septic system or whatever they use there? Is it a pumping system? I'm looking at data here that they use roughly to 100 to 150,000 gallons of water every 3 months there. So, if you're looking at high usage municipal buildings as trying to recoup some of the costs and the maintenance, is Norris potentially in the zone to consider to be putting in on this? And that's if you extended that map to some of them condo complexes. It's a short little run through the field.
Does this bound?
It's not an instead. Joe, point out Norris School for us, please.
Yep, right here.
Yeah, right there.
So does these bounds look good to the town? Is this what you'd be looking to do? And we're bounding it to the existing bounds that are already there, like those red lines. So it'd essentially be like pretty much all of this area, like everything inside the red. You can ignore the interior red lines that were previously drawn. We would just do this entire area.
I'm not seeing your screen sharing.
Can anyone else see my screen?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Sorry. Well, I don't know. I moved around before, so I could have just been talking to myself here.
Oh, yeah. I did not see that screen sharing. I'm still looking at the original map. Sorry.
No. Don't apologize.
So I don't know. I mean, is it necessary to do all the way up Pomeroy Meadow and around that way, or just do the other side of College Highway to Pomeroy Meadow?
I mean, looks like Park Place is a relatively new area. Their septic systems are probably all good.
Yeah. And then you've got Long Hill that's doing their own. Yeah.
So then why don't we do this? If the town can, mark up the map to what additional areas you'd like to serve, assuming the municipal area is going to go away, but we're going to add to the village area, just mark it up and send it over. And then we can, take a look at that and make sure it jives with what we've currently proposed on.
Okay. You want to send that map over to Stephen maybe, or?
Sure.
Then we can
I'd be happy to
make a copy of it and tinker with it or whatever.
Yep. Housing meets tomorrow at 6. Tonight at 6.
Oh.
Tonight at 6. So It's perfect.
All right.
Yeah,
good. Well, I think that would be great, at least to, maybe just revise that study area and see if that still fits within the envelope of the 29.6, or if it's a few thousand more, just so we know, how much money we have to go looking for in the various corners.
Yeah, certainly. And when do you need to know by? Did I catch tomorrow?
Well, yeah, I'm not going to, be a couple of days to sit down and do this. So by Monday, maybe it would be great. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we can certainly. Well, we'll get you the map now. So as soon as you can turn the map around to us, we'll look at it, make sure we're good with it. And if we are, great. Yep. If we are not, we'll let you know what it's going to take and we'll take it from there.
All right.
So can you save it as a PDF that has an intrinsic scale so I can draw on it and have something useful? I don't have a printer that will do it justice, and my screen is a lot better.
We can set, Joe, down the bottom right. I think we can set it to the scale that the drawing had.
Yes.
And
I see. Yes. Okay.
And save it that way. It should work. It's at a big scale.
I'll just make it, whatever. Well, this is new to me. It's beyond my technological expertise here, but we'll figure it out.
All right.
I'd like to do what you did and annotate the map rather than print it out and not be able to read it anymore.
Yeah, that sounds good. All right, guys. Well, thank you very much, everybody, for getting together. This has been a good discussion, and I think it feels like we're all on the same wavelength. That Scott and I will sit down and try and figure out where we can find $30,000 or thereabouts, and get back to you hopefully by Monday-ish, and let you know that we've got at least some pockets that we're going to try and dip into. And if that's true, then I think we would go for doing that, moving the study along rather than using the one-stop application for this particular process, and saving our energies for a bigger effort. Okay.
Soon.
All right. With that, I'm gonna ask to adjourn the meeting. Kate, would you make a motion, please?
I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
All right. I'll second that. We will call the meeting adjourned.
This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.